Welcome back to another episode of Straight to the Point series. This is a really special episode this week because I have my incredible husband, Scott Seymour, as a special guest on the podcast. Today, we're talking about how plant medicine has allowed him to drop the need to be liked and show up in his raw, authentic vulnerability. He's a men's emotional mindset and relationship coach. He's worked for 5+ years in retreat facilitation and plant medicine work, but always struggled with needing to be liked and accepted. He is recently back from the Amazon jungle where he sat with grandmother ayahuasca for a little over a week, which has ultimately changed his relationship with himself, becoming the more of himself, which we'll get into here in a second, and ultimately free from any need for outside validation, which is, we find a pandemic in the coaching industry and oftentimes drives a lot of the things that we do. And so it's an honor to get to have you on the show, to
Such an honor.
See you and walk with you in these really sacred spaces, watching you show up and say yes and do the work on yourself and choose you, which has been such a gift as your partner, to see you in the evolution of who I met in 2015. I don't even know, 2014.
2014.
And who you are today. And one of the things that I will just start by saying is the second you got home from your most recent trip, I've never felt more safe as the feminine and more seen by my partner, because I felt like you were actually seeing yourself for the first time in ways that you hadn't before. So I don't know if you want to chat about that a little bit. We're all really eager to hear about your experience down there and even just speak into some of the highlights of the trip.
Thank you. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. And thank you both for having me on. And yes, I came back from a 10-day trip, a week down in Peru at the Aracana Retreat Center. That was in the Amazon. And I went with a brother of mine and a sister of mine. And it was really powerful because we made the decision not to communicate.
Yeah.
And that, because in a relationship and marriage, yes, there are codependencies over time, but we're co-pilots. Like, we work this life together. And so really choosing to not rely upon that external crutch, so to say, because we've had time apart before, but we haven't had the time apart without communication.
Yeah.
And then really working on healing and working on myself individually so that I can come back and be that partner.
I remember when I first brought this idea up to Scott, because it was like a very clear message that I got of like, you need to completely disconnect from each other. And as he said, we'd never not spoken. Even when I've run retreats or when Scott's run retreats, we've always stayed in contact. We've either had a voice connection or a text connection. And I got this really clear message that he was meant to be fully there. And when I first brought it up to him, he's like, I don't like that idea.
My mind and my ego didn't like it for sure. And my soul knew that was the highest calling, to actually look at all the places and not go to my comfy blanket. Like a lot of really good programs and downloads and messages and uploads, or whatever you want to call them, have come at different times when we've had separation. And then I've been able to be in that mindset of waking up without my beloved next to me, and then being like, oh, wow, with that introspection to myself, how can this process work? So having and going into the retreat center with that mindset was powerful.
Yeah.
And specifically with this show and with the raw authenticity being the new desired norm, I really feel like people in life, and specifically the coaching industry, are used to being given this filter, given this, hey, 30,000 months, and here's the things that you can do really fast. It's like, how about the raw shit? How about how hard it is? How about the stuff that you're struggling with in your relationships, or like getting to the raw, underneath, unfiltered, no Instagram or TikTok filter of this has to look a certain way, but the truth. And so doing this work, doing plant medicine, whether it be with psilocybin or in this case, ayahuasca, and I've sat for ayahuasca 4 times before with grandmother, but I have never sat for 4 consecutive ceremonies. And to really get to that underbelly of the soul, to really excavate what the Dharma is and really reconnect with my soul's gifts, and find that raw aspect of myself that I can then bring forth and not look for validation with a brother or a sister, or try to have someone or do something so someone likes me. Trying versus being. I'm not a human trier, I'm a human being. So it's like, how can I actually be myself and let that be the magnitude that I show up with?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because Molly and I were talking yesterday, and maybe you want to speak into this, of just like, it's not even, since you've returned, it's not even anything that you've said. It's just who you be. It's like the auric field that you're giving off, just your presence, your full presence. I don't know if you want to speak to that, Molly.
Oh yeah, it's shifted so deeply in so many ways. I mean, even when I pulled in the other day coming home from the gym and I saw you guys, I was like, who? I saw both of you together. I was like, look at this couple in this cute little green and black matching outfit set. But your presence, just like even pulling in, I was like, oh my gosh, like your power from just being you and feeling so comfortable being you, exactly who you are, just radiated right off of you. And like Em said, it's not about anything that you've said or done. It's not about the doing or the saying. It's just who you be. And it's really, really beautiful to see that and to just be in your presence. It always has been. I know before you left, I literally had a breakdown because I, had a moment of like, oh my gosh, Scott's not going to be the same person. And I like had a little bit of like a grieving period, but it was the duality of grieving and also so much excitement for you. And it's just been so nice to see you at the times that I have and like crossing paths. And yeah, it's powerful. It's really powerful to witness.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that you said that specifically because I had so many intentions going into all the ceremonies, and I was like, oh, night 1, night 2, here are my intentions. And I had a lot of them answered. Like even night 2, my intention was to become aware of all the pain that I've ever caused anyone in the world, and then where that pain has continued and recycled since then. But then even fast forward to the last 2 nights, I was, okay, grandmother, if I'm going over to grandma's house, what story? This is the story I want you to tell me versus my heart and my soul. Can you tell me what you know that I need to hear? And so the first night it was truly about listening, but what you just spoke into this was the 4th and final night. It was presence.
Yeah.
And that presence is an active prayer. And when you are truly present, you're not letting your thoughts get in the way. You're not thinking about the next thing that you're going to say. You're actively listening, which is the highest form of respect that anyone can give anyone, because you're listening to understand. It's not even listening to respond. So that presence is saying, I am this channel through which the divine gets to orchestrate through. And in that presence, I'm taking in every little gift and blessing and not missing any of the miracles that are coming forth around me that I'm bringing to really absorb and partake and be a part of. And the second that I get in my mind, I lose and that it filters my presence. And even the posture that I hold will command that presence. And we were getting ready for this call, and I was just, the second that I relaxed for a second, it's like, wow, I can feel that my presence is commanded by my posture. And like there's 270 lessons that really came through
Yeah.
in the midst of being there. And I think even with the coaching and the personas that are put up, is everyone struggles. Everyone struggles. And when someone is not honest, when someone actually lies or says something, even to sell something, I'm trying to sell something, I'm trying to enroll someone in my vision. It's that lack of authenticity creates a lack of acceptance of reality within. And that's where depression and madness comes in. That's where we actually get mad at ourselves. We get mad at reality. There's so much anger because we're wanting to be something that we're not versus really owning who we are and letting that be the lighthouse that shines and not this vision board persona. Like, yes, have the vision, strive for the vision, but don't like own the position and the strength of where it is. Because even when I love the fact that you guys are embracing your journey with this. Like every single milestone gets celebrated. Every single version gets celebrated because it's owning where you are. And there's beauty in that. It's not pretending to be more. It's saying this is where we are and this is the growth. And you can't just say tree or like seed and now it's a tree. Like there's a part where it grows and it sprouts and it gets watered and it's part of the growth process. And if you just go from seed to tree, you're missing the whole process. It's not the destination, it's the entire journey. And the whole journey is fucking beautiful. So it's not fast forwarding that.
Yeah. Well, and I think you really watched me walk through that piece at the end of last year of like being a business coach and having done really well and been really successful. And then income dipping and then the debt climbing and all of these things that I was hiding from the outside world because I thought like, well, what if I come clean and I'm actually owning where I'm at and my authentic story and my authentic journey versus this mask of success that I was trying to, maintain.
Yeah.
And you watched that really torture my soul from the inside out. I mean, that language is kind of intense, but in a lot of ways, it was this like struggle. And there were moments where I was like so deep in the internal struggle, battling my shame and my truth. And, do I share this? Do I not share this? And suppressing parts of myself and not feeling free to be authentically me. And I really struggled with some really dark thoughts and some really dark moments of depression. And, I'm grateful actually that we had the tool of plant medicine throughout last year and throughout our partnership. I mean, when Scott and I first started dating, we were not in this world at all. I wasn't a coach. He wasn't a coach. We weren't awake. I was doing maybe some meditation. He'd gone to church. Like, it was like, we dabbled in spirituality and religion a little bit. We weren't on the spiritual journey yet. Yeah. And so we really awakened to our path together through ayahuasca. It was the first plant medicine that we both ever sat with. And it really feels like a full circle moment. I mean, we've been together now 8 years. Yeah. And plant medicine didn't come into our partnership and didn't come into our relationship until 5 years into our relationship, 1 year into our marriage, or less than a year into our marriage. Yeah. And it's really been a journey of becoming not only individually, but in partnership through the use of that tool. Yeah. And I think it's really important, or I'd love to hear you share also like how, and I know you're just back, right? But how your life, even from this moment, is changing. Your relationships are changing. Your coaching is changing from this new awareness of, I don't have to do these things to get people to accept me and to love me and to like me, because I love me. I like me.
Yeah. And I want to speak into that
Yeah.
and what you said about the journey for yourself and your authenticity with that, because it was a toll on your career, and it took a toll on our relationship too, because that transparency didn't always happen. Like, it wasn't in the forefront of the coaching, and then it wasn't between us for a while too. Like, there were things that I didn't even know about that were like some of the investments. And so really with that transparency was able to open up those aspects of trust.
Right.
So this whole thing, even now for me, is having to try versus like we're saying, versus having to be. And when the effort is put into trying to be seen or trying to be heard, it's like speaking what I'm thinking or speaking what I know versus knowing what I'm saying. It's coming from like knowledge or coming from an embodied wisdom. It's letting it distill and really get to a place where I'm not teaching, I'm sharing. I'm sharing my story. I'm sharing my truth and owning what energy is mine, and then really taking full responsibility and seeing when and where I played the victim, and really understanding that that's where I can become the creator, and seeing when I vilified someone and say, they did that to me, and say, wow, they really challenged me to see where I want to do something that way or where I don't want to do something that way. And as opposed to, as a man, especially wanting to be that hero who comes in and saves the day for any client, just being like, it's their job.
Yeah.
The job of the coach is not to be in the game for the player. The player is the one who does the passing and is the one who's in the game. The coach is the one who helps them to prepare and then to get to that place. So really not playing the hero, but really taking the role of the coach and letting them be the hero of their own story.
Absolutely.
So taking a back seat, but also just loving the whole process and seeing that the role that I play is as that assistant, as that co-pilot, as that reflection for where they are, and knowing that life is really the mirror.
Yes.
And as far as they stand in their strength, life will reflect that strength back to them, and for myself as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something that I'm curious about, Scott, that I've really noticed and has called me forward in a lot of ways is your languaging in your stories of sharing from me. And I'm curious for you of what the opportunity is in that, and how, and the importance for you in shifting your language of speaking and saying you and shifting that to me. What is that? I'm curious of what that means for you.
It means ownership of my story. It means not projecting, not pretending to know someone else's story, or not trying to tell someone what to do. I feel like a lot of times it's easy to disassociate from our own stories. I say our right now, from my own story, because it's, hey, you in a group, you know, when you go to the store, you know, when you do this, versus ownership and full ownership of that story. Like, it's hard to do sometimes, but it's not projecting on anyone else. It's taking full accountability for that story.
Yeah.
And in doing so, you're not telling someone else what to do. You're sharing from your own place of authenticity,
right,
and letting that be a reflection to anyone else who would like to see that light.
Yeah. I think that is so important and so liberating in so many ways. I know for me, watching you, you know, even on your stories and saying you and then going me, right, is I'm like, wow, where is it that I'm doing that? And what space am I doing that from? And what I found for me is it's like a fear that if I say me, right, that nobody's going to understand what I'm saying. And so nobody's going to relate to me. And so I catch myself saying you, right? And I say at the end of sentences sometimes, you know, like somebody validate me, somebody agree with me, right? Because it's that fear of being alone in my experience. And so that's just something that I wanted to ask you about. And I appreciate you sharing about that, because I think that that's so powerful, especially in this new era of the coaching industry, to discern between, are you really speaking to somebody else, or are you sharing your own experience and there's a fear or resistance in fully owning that?
Yeah. Well, and can I ask you, how has shifting your messaging in that way changed how you see people receiving you? Have you noticed a difference?
I feel like there's more of an acceptance and a response to the ownership of the story when I identify and own my story, because it's easier for anyone to reflect it to themselves if they'd like to. Like
to see themselves in your story?
Right.
Got it.
Because in full ownership of my story, it gives someone else the opportunity to do the same, similar to the conscious partnership work, where when I take 100% responsibility for myself and my triggers and my emotions and my emotional history, and it has nothing to do with you, it has everything to do with me and my history, and I take that full responsibility, it gives the other person, takes away the pressure. It's not like, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. This is what I did. This is how I had my own experience. And this is what worked for me. There are thousands of ways you can do this in the world. You can choose so many different ways. And if we're a way shower in any way, we're showing the ways that we've done it.
Absolutely.
And what's worked for us versus telling someone else what's going to work for them. It might not work for them. In a lot of ways, they can take a few different things like a buffet and choose what they want. And someone will be a lot more receptive to it if you put it out there and say, here's me.
Absolutely.
And then they can say, oh, beautiful, versus you should do this. And a lot of people's feathers and walls will come up, be like, whoa, I have to do what?
Yeah.
That's like a dictatorship. That's not a collaboration.
Absolutely. Well, the word that comes to mind for me of like even you saying that and really saying, hey, there are a million different ways to do this, is the word that comes through, and just the energy that comes through you as I'm witnessing you saying that, is magnetism. Is like, that's actually creates such an energy of magnetism, and not trying to be magnetic. It's the energy of not needing other people to get you, not needing somebody to buy this thing from you, not needing them to do it your way. It's saying, this is how I've done it. This is my story. And this is one way you could do it. And like the safety that's created in that and the natural magnetism, that's really powerful. Yeah.
One thing I would like to say, because we were talking about plant medicine and talking about my own story, is that the very last night that I sat for ceremony. Now, backtrack is for the past, 5 years, 6 years, I have been a daily, multiple times a day, like I'm highly functional on cannabis and marijuana. And grandmother came very heavily to me in my ceremony. And she said to me, you've been literally abusing my sister. And I was like, your sister? And she's like, yeah, cannabis, marijuana is my sister. And like, there was the spirit that she was speaking with to me. There was another through line where I felt her heart and her spirit being like sad that she's in gummies and in pills and like in these medication forms, because her heart is to be in this raw, pure form. And she's like, you really abused her and used her. And I was like, how long do I need to be away from her to come back? And she's like, the fact that you're asking is the problem. And it's really disassociated me from the respect for her. So she said at minimum a year, if not like years. But when I do come back, if I ever do, it's like grandmother style. It's once or twice, maybe 3 times a year. And when I do, with intention and bringing this reverence to it, and like even coming into the ceremonies, I worked on my intentions for like a week. I mulled over that like homework, like studying for that, and like, what am I bringing into this, and how am I doing this? And leading the men's work that I've done out in Joshua Tree with like the Wolf Heart Way, incorporated cannabis with like breathwork sessions, and feeling like I'm doubling down on these depths of these experiences the men are having, versus realizing she's begging to be her own ceremony. She doesn't want to be combined with something else. She just wants her pure form to be respected and honored for the expansion of the mind that she can create with the arts and lay out paints and like let yourself be in this environment and really explore, but not to be used day after day after day after day and as a crutch or as a sexual repression so you can last longer or so that you can feel these aspects. And then because it really, how I do something is how I do everything. And that intention that I bring just became this abuse. And she was so adamant to me that my truth is she's begging for that respect. And her heart is just bleeding out underneath the commercialism of this country and the fact that it's become available and just, I don't want to say bastardized, but in a lot of ways, like really abused and used. And so that was something that came across for myself specifically in that journey space.
Well, and I really watched you, this has been a big struggle for us in our partnership.
Yeah.
And I really watched as you got clean this last time before heading to the jungle. The awareness that came through for me was how small you had allowed yourself to become through the overuse of this substance. And marijuana is a tricky one because it's not a depressant like alcohol.
Yeah.
And there is a level of elevated consciousness that can happen when you're partaking in that plant. And so there are threads and webs of confusion of like, well, I'm more clear when I'm on it, or I'm more connected to source when I'm on it. And so feeling like you needed that in order to be a better man, be a better coach, be a better friend, be a better whatever.
Yeah, I was timing literally my coaching sessions to smoke right beforehand. I'm like, I'm going to be more clear on this call. Like, yeah,
Totally. And the thread of that, what I saw also, the thread of that was because I need their approval of me, because I want to get it right, because I want to make sure I'm being the best coach, friend, partner, husband that I can be in these situations, because I don't want to sit with the discomfort of not knowing or not having the answer or whatever the piece is, and not fully trusting yourself and your channel and your truth. And I saw, I saw a lot of the ways in which the misuse of that plant has kept you small over the years.
Yeah, it really did keep me. It was like velvet handcuffs. And it really did keep me small. And the long-term effect of my short-term and long-term memory just really hindered my ability to remember, hindered my ability to connect the dots, and thoughts would drop off and be like, oh shit, yep, there's that again. Yep, there's that again. And it was always, I knew where it was coming from, but I was so afraid of letting go of this spiritually enlightening crutch that now has become this thing that I have so much respect and reverence for. I feel like I've beaten this woman. It sounds horrible, but it sounds like I've done that in this way and abused her. And it's just like, the best way I can love her is express and be a vocal advocate, at least for myself, for the kind of respect she's desiring from me, and how I'm holding her in that light and that love and that healing, and really looking to whether or not I even use her again, just respecting the love that I have for her, what she did for me, and how she does help, like with cancer patients, like suppressing appetite, like, or to increase appetite for people who aren't hungry. I wasn't able to eat for so long just because, I haven't been smoking. It's like really getting the body back to the actual signals that were supposed to be given versus muting them and distorting them, and really getting back to the foundation of who am I at the most pure form. And then if I bring that forward, I know that will be good enough.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And what I'm really feeling like through what you're sharing is that underneath, with the coaching calls and the timing of the things, right, is there was a deep craving to feel whole within your presence, right? Mm-hmm. Feeling the power within you, in your presence, and the wholeness of that, even if that looks like pausing and needing to wait a few minutes or not having the answer to the question, right? Is showing up in your wholeness. And something that Em shared with me yesterday, and I don't want to speak totally to it because I'd love for you to share, but even with the breath work that you do, right, on a regular basis with clients, or you hold at ceremony, is how you saw that, right, the connection that we so desire, the presence we're looking for, and we try and find that outside of ourselves, that you found that God is in the air.
Yeah. Holy shit. So on Thursday night, that was the night of the third ceremony, but in the morning, we sat for Sapo, which is the toad, and that's Bufo. And this is a toad that is found from Arizona, New Mexico, all the way down to Sonoran area in Mexico. And they extract the venom off of the back of the toad's back, and then it's put onto a glass plate, and then it's smoked. And I've built up my lungs over time. I really feel like my body, even with the cannabis smoking, built me up for this one specific moment in my life. Like I even asked the facilitator, because they're talking about the breaths that we take in of this. And I'm like, can I just take it in one giant breath because of the breath work that I've done over time? And he was like, if you can do that, yeah, you want it in one breath. And so I just did this slow pull, and then it was a holding at the top. And I think I held it for like a little over 2 minutes. And it was just like, I got into this disillusion of reality. It was all white. It was fragments of light. It was the Om, literally embodiment. It felt like I was back in heaven, in home, in the aspect of disattachment to everything. And I felt like at one with God within and with all around me, connected to all, not identified with myself. And then it was a whole process of my own pain, and then the history of the love affair between creation and creator, and feeling all the feelings of the love and the desire. And they were telling me beforehand that I could control it with my breath. I could control the sensation with my breath. And a lot of people were in their processes and rolling on the ground and yelling and crying and screaming. And I was able to anchor into my breath and really take slow, long, deep breaths in the middle of it. And they're like, are you okay? And as I was processing, I gave them a thumbs up so they could really see that I was. But they ushered in a level of healing that I've never seen before. I felt so held by the staff there. And God is literally in oxygen. We say that God is all around us. God is within us. God is. Because God is within oxygen. God is within us with the water in our bodies. When we're in mushroom ceremony, we look at water. Oh my gosh, it looks like diamonds and crystals, and it looks so cool. There's 2 molecules of oxygen in there, combined and held together with 1 hydrogen. So it's literally looking at 2 aspects of God in this form. And wherever you have more oxygen, you don't have illness. You don't have hypoxia. You don't have show me a wound that can heal without oxygen.
Right.
Like God heals with and through this. And it's that cherishing of that exchange with God through Mother Nature. It's that exchange where the vessels, and we're able to be that God in human form, because it's our fuel of God working in and through us. And so that breath work, even combined with something else, is taking away from that source connection with God. And I never really saw it and understood it before as deeply, because I understood breath work. I understood that the pineal and the pituitary and the hypothalamus, I understood how it all flowed, and pranayama, life force, words, all these things. But it's like, oh yeah, pranayama. Okay, wow. This is life force energy. This is God's energy working through us. This is our fuel of life. This is our active communion. When we're breathing, it is our communion, as much as someone wants to represent it with a little cracker and some grape juice at church. Beautiful. And that's the blood of Christ in a synthetic version, and the active communion with God is breath. Like, and we take it for granted. It's just always happening. But when we focus on it and when we control our breath, show me someone who can control their breath, who can't control their emotions. You can control all your emotions when you can control your breathing pattern, and you can just harness your life and not be taken back, not have the wind taken out of you. If you're scared, if you're frightened, if you're happy, if you're mad, you can really harness and anchor into what can anchor you the most: God's love. Yeah. Because love accepts everything the way that it is. So the more that that can be brought into the body, the more that we can actually love everything around us if we actually put the focus on it.
I fucking love that. And even just like sitting here, I'm like, oh my gosh, God literally is in the air. And even like, I know for me, hearing like God is within you and God is around you, is it even then for me was creating like, well, where is God in me? Is God in my heart? Is God right? And where is God outside of me? Is God in that tree? It's like there was still this like looking for it somewhere, when in fact what you're saying is that God is everywhere. And that shift, I think, is so, it's just such a powerful, I mean.
Well, and our bodies are made up of what, 70% water, which has how much oxygen in it. And then how much oxygen is also in our bloodstream, and how much oxygen is in our muscles and our bones and our cells. And right. So how could we not be fractals of God and source creation, having a human experience?
Yeah.
At Arcana, up in the quiet room next to the office, there's this neon sign, this neon light that says, "Enjoy your breath." In fact, a few of the facilitators want to get it tattooed. And I thought it was so beautiful, because enjoy your breath, and breath is life. So enjoy your life. And it's like, and if God's in that, so enjoying your breath is enjoying God's presence in you. And it really is much more of an appreciation than just a taken for granted. And then it really is a prayer. It really is like, how can I appreciate and love and bring the presence into every breath? It's so easy to get distracted and taken away from things, and we need constant reminders to set our intentions for ourselves. But if we make our breath our intention, we'll never be out of the passion or the drive for going after our dreams or our dharma, because we're going to be anchored into God in every single fucking moment.
It simplifies it so much, which can be such the scary part for so many people.
Right.
The breath.
Which anchors back to what Emily said so profoundly at a ceremony quite a while ago. But it's like, we're all sitting at the banquet table of life, feasting on the moment. How good can we let it get? And when we have that gratitude and knowledge of that, it's like, how can we not be in a state of gratitude all the time? How can we not appreciate life?
Yeah. I'm curious, how do you see your coaching changing from here, from these new spaces and places of awareness? What do you see shifting, changing, evolving, transforming in the way that you support your clients, in the things that you teach, in how you show up in reverence to the work?
Yeah. Beautiful question. I see, it's so weird because change is so consistent that sometimes the biggest change happens when you don't actually point it out. And the change that I see is in the embodiment of who they are, and not trying to be what they desire to be. Because when they go after the desire, they're going after the fact that it's lacking in them now, and more of an actualization that it's in them. And it's not a desire to be something other than what they already are, but actualizing the fact that that desire comes from just like a metal detector for the soul. Like, it feels authentic, but it's just finding the spot for them where it pulls their truth out of them. Right. And it's that authentic embodiment. It's not me trying to be what the world is telling me to be from the outside in, but it's saying, okay, shed that, because that will create depression, because that will mean that you're exhausted from this and your soul will need deep rest because you're depressed. And it's wanting to be who it is from the inside out. So really honing and owning who they are from the inside out. And when the spiritual triage, when the energetic triage can be done to see where the energy has been splayed and really take those energetic cords, wrap it around their truth, and let that energy shine from within, then they don't have to question or say, what am I or who am I? But it's just that embodiment and not a tribe, but a be.
Yes.
And what would you say is one way that somebody listening to this episode could start their path of full acceptance of themselves without the need for that external validation or needing to be liked or posturing a certain way? What would be the first step for somebody who's seeking what you're talking about?
I think that the long, short version would be that owning the fact that you're exactly where you're supposed to be, that everything is happening for you, not to you. And that's very much an unhealthy masculine, a misaligned program of trying to be something else. And the masculine in a lot of ways is really beautiful because it sets the structure and it wants to be more and it wants to be more. And that full acceptance of self comes from the divine feminine within. And so just really owning the fact that both those energies exist within, and your inner king will be a tyrant if you don't fully embody your inner queen, because we have to have that resistance for growth. Just like weight at a gym, the resistance creates growth, and that your king needs his queen in her full power. And the full queen, the full healthy feminine and her greatest is the divine love. It's Mother Mary love. It's, you could have run over someone with a car and kicked a baby. And I know it's horrible, but the whole thing is like, you're going to be loved no matter what. It's unconditional love. It's love without conditions. It's loving you exactly the way that you are. So realizing that everything that's happened that you might feel guilt or shame about in the past really was a gift, and that the shift from that mentality could really be with full ownership, coming from that victim mindset into ownership of your feelings and creator mindset. But in that power, it's owning the feminine within who will love no matter what. And I picture myself like sitting at the head of a round table, and every version of me that's ever existed is sitting around this table. And if there's a version of me, like all of them from age 1 to age 41, where I am now, and if there's one that I look back and I have shame or guilt from them, they have a dunce cap and they're sitting in a corner and they're not talking to me. I get to act with discernment from where I am now, but I need their input because they did the best they could with where they were. I did the best that I could. I say they, but it's me. I did the best I could with where I was. And so really bringing myself forward, shedding the love and saying, you did the best you could with where you were. I might feel bad about that now because I know better now, but that's like a college student getting angry at a second grader for not understanding the problem of advanced geometry. Like they just don't get it. And so it's saying, wow, I see you. I love you. You did your best. And in doing so, now I get all the inputs from all the versions of me. And I get to see how silly and fun and playful and crazy and weird and dope and all those other things. And all of that gets to be brought to me. And then I get to act with that discernment from where I am. So it's really, how can that maternal, eternal love with my inner queen love myself and all the versions of me and bring all of them forward so that I can really be the full version of myself moving forward versus someone who shames and guilts. Because the more that I do that, hurt people, and heal people. And the more that I have that block to any of myself, it's like a kinked water hose. It'll block all my energy in that place. And the more that energy is opened up, all the energy will flow through, and then I'm not going to have that sanskara on me where the water or the energy has had to like diverge or go around, but I can really have a clean stream of energy processing through and be that channel.
That hit me hard.
So beautiful.
So beautiful. So beautiful.
Yes, we are.
Into a t-shirt because he always says it. He says, yes, we are. And then you said somebody else, some other company has we
Sacred Sons.
Just says we.
Just we, W-E, period.
And I'm like, yours is yes, we are. And you need to get that ship made and have all of us wear it.
Yeah.
I love that.
So much for being on the show and sharing your truth and your vulnerability and the more of you that you're becoming and stepping into each day with this work. I'm so grateful to be in partnership with you and to be exploring all of these wild, vast, unknown spaces within ourselves together. Makes it not so scary.
And I love living a stone's throw away from you guys and being a part of all of it too.
Honestly, there's a trailer we watched the other night called The Jesus Revolution, which is new. It's like out right now. And I'm like, oh, we got to have Molly over and have a family movie night.
I think it's only in theaters. We should just go to the movie theater.
We'll go to the movie theater.
Let's go to the movie theater.
Perfect.
So Scott, tell everybody how they can find you, where they can find you, how they can work with you, how they can hire you.
Well, this is the address I live at. This is how you can stalk me. So on Instagram, I'm at Journey of Man. So it's journey_of_man. That you can reach out to me there at the link on the bio. You can see the podcast that I have called Evolving Gladiators. You can reach out to me on there. I'd be happy to respond. And any other ways? I don't know. Any other ways? If you live in Austin, I do men's work with the Empowered Brotherhood out here. If you're out in California, through the Wolfheart Way, who's also on Instagram, we have a men's group that does retreats out in Joshua Tree that is going to have more retreats in Austin and on the East Coast this year. So that's a men's alchemy group who really do emotional work for men to really tap back into their feelings so they can understand and be more holistic and embodied men.
Did I also hear that you're launching a breathwork bundle?
I am. I sure am.
Tell us about that, especially with the conversation about God.
Seriously.
Yeah, it's for anyone who really wants to deepen their knowledge of self, who wants to be able to clear their mind and their hearts. Not clear their hearts, but clear their hearts even from any of the stresses from their day and not transfer it to their families and really be more centered and grounded. I've been doing breath work for the past 4.5 years. And it really is a combination. I have a history in storytelling and acting and was an actor for over 15 years. So I really like to use the soundtracks from different films and really usher everyone in to be the heroes of their own story. So it involves like an energetic triage. It's getting to know you and your heart and then tailoring a breathwork session to really cater to what you're looking to grow and inspire with and through, with a lot of the greatest soundtracks of all time and creating that for your own personal journey and helping you usher into the more of yourself.
I'm obsessed. Is this for men and women or just men?
No, it's for men and women.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So good.
Perfect.
Journey of Man. We'll have all the links in the bio so you can go ahead and check that out. Check him out. Wink, wink. I think he's pretty attractive myself. But.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Straight to the Point series. We're so grateful that you're here, you're listening, you're loving these conversations. We want to hear from you. What do you love? What do you want more of? If you're not already following us on Instagram, it's straight to the point series. Go ahead and do that now. We're also on TikTok, same handle. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. You can check us out on YouTube.
We're everywhere.
We're everywhere. We're everywhere you want to be. And then you can connect with me at the.emilyfitz on Instagram.
And I'm at the Truly Molly.
We're so grateful. Grateful for you.
Grateful for you.
Grateful for
Love
these
you guys.
conversations.
Grateful for you, Mom.
So grateful
And for a platform and a space where we get to have radically authentic conversations that speak truth and love and light into the places where most dare not go.
Amazing.
Yeah. Till next time.
Till next time.